The glint of the syringe caught Dr. Olivia Hayes's eye as the second hand ticked mercilessly toward 4 o'clock. The amber liquid inside enough pentobarbital to end a life waited on the cold steel tray. 6 feet away, Max lay muzzled on the examination table, his once proud German Shepherd frame now restrained with 3 thick straps. "Such a shame," whispered Becky. The vet tech. 12 years of service, and he snaps like that. Through the observation window, Olivia watched sanctuary staff still cleaning up the morning's destruction. Overturned medicine cabinets, shredded bedding, splintered kennel doors. But something in Max's amber eyes gave her pause. Not rage, not dementia, something else, desperate intelligence trying to communicate. Olivia checked her watch. 6 hours until the scheduled euthanasia of a hero. 6 hours to uncover what Max was trying to tell them before time ran out. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. Second Chance. Animal sanctuary sprawled across 15 acres of Arizona desert, its weathered buildings offering shelter from the merciless sun. Founded 15 years ago specifically for retired service animals, the sanctuary had become known as the final dignified chapter for animals who had given everything to serve. Max had arrived just 2 months earlier, his paperwork outlining a distinguished career that few humans could match. 8 years with the Denver Police Department's K-9 unit had yielded 47 felony arrests, 23 missing persons found alive, and 12 major drug operations dismantled. His coat, once midnight black with rich tan markings, now showed the silver frosting of age around his muzzle. Arthritis had stiffened his once fluid gait, but staff noted how the old warrior carried himself with unmistakable dignity. Dr. Olivia Hayes had been at Second Chance for 3 years, finding purpose in caring for animals after her medical discharge from the Army. At 38, the nightmares from her tours in Afghanistan still woke her some nights, and the animals seemed to sense her invisible wounds. She understood trauma better than most in both humans and animals. Detective James Mitchell had been Max's handler for the last 5 years of his service. Their bond was legendary in the department. Mitchell often joked that Max was the better detective. When arthritis finally made field work impossible for Max, Mitchell had personally delivered him to Second Chance, promising to visit monthly. His last visit had been exactly 1 week ago. Richard Whitman ran the sanctuary with military precision, not surprising given his 20 years as a Marine before retiring as a colonel. At 58, his weathered face and ramrod posture commanded immediate respect. His wife Carol managed the administrative side, her warmth balancing Richard's sternness. Together, they'd built Second Chance into a model facility that attracted generous donors and positive press. What nobody knew, what Max's records deliberately omitted, was the tragedy that had shaped his early career. His first handler, Thomas Anderson, had died in Max's 3rd year of service during a warehouse raid gone wrong. Max himself had taken 2 bullets but dragged Anderson's body to safety before collapsing. The physical wounds had healed. The psychological ones had merely scabbed over, leaving Max with a particular kind of haunted vigilance that never fully faded. The day began like any other at Second Chance. Dawn broke over the desert landscape, painting the sanctuary buildings in soft gold. The morning feeding routine started at 5:30 a.m., with the night staff preparing to hand over to the day shift. Mark Jensen, the night watchman, made his final rounds before clocking out. Later, security footage would show him pausing at Max's kennel longer than usual. What the cameras couldn't capture was the whispered conversation or the scent that clung to Mark's uniform, a scent that made Max's nostrils flare. At precisely 6:07 a.m., all hell broke loose. "I've never seen anything like it," Paula, the morning supervisor, would later tell Olivia. He wasn't just acting out, it was like he was possessed. The security footage showed Max first pacing his kennel frantically, then suddenly launching himself at the gate with a force that shouldn't have been possible for a 12-year-old arthritic dog. The latch, weakened from years of use, gave way on the third impact. What followed was what the staff could only describe as a rampage. Max tore through the facility with single-minded determination. He knocked over supply shelves in the storage room, scattered medications in the treatment area, and shredded bedding in 3 separate kennels. When confronted by staff, he didn't attack, he simply evaded, continuing his destructive path. The most disturbing moment came when he reached the administrative building, somehow shouldering his way through the back door and upending Richard Whitman's desk before staff could corner him. By 7:30 a.m., they had finally managed to secure Max in an isolation kennel. The sanctuary looked like a tornado had torn through it. Damage estimates were already running into thousands of dollars. "We have no choice," Richard Whitman's voice echoed through the conference room 3 hours later. The emergency board meeting had been called immediately, with Olivia rushing in from her day off. "This animal has become dangerous and unpredictable. This isn't like Max," Olivia argued, scanning the incident report. 8 years of service without a single aggressive incident. His psych evaluations were always exemplary. Something triggered this. "Does it matter what triggered it?" Richard countered, gesturing to the photos of destruction spread across the table. "We're liable if he hurts someone. We have children who visit this sanctuary. Dr. Hayes." Carol Whitman, usually the voice of compassion, looked troubled. "I hate to say it, but Richard has a point. We can't risk it." The vote was quick and decisive, 7-1 in favor of immediate euthanasia, with only Olivia dissenting. "I'll do it myself this afternoon," Olivia said quietly. "But I'd like to examine him first. Make sure this isn't a medical issue. A brain tumor could explain sudden behavior changes." Richard nodded curtly. 4 o'clock. Not a minute later. After the meeting disbanded, Olivia made her way to the isolation unit. Max sat alert in the reinforced kennel, his amber eyes following her every move. There was none of the glazed confusion she'd expect from a senior dog with cognitive dysfunction. No sign of the aggression reported just hours earlier. "What happened?" "Buddy," she murmured, carefully approaching the kennel. Max stood, tail giving a single deliberate wag, not the friendly greeting of a pet, but the acknowledgement of a working dog recognizing an ally. Olivia had grown up around canine officers. Her father had been a trainer for 30 years before retirement, and she'd learned to read the subtle language of working dogs. What she saw in Max now wasn't aggression or confusion, it was urgency. She reviewed the security footage again, looking beyond the destruction to see patterns. Max hadn't been randomly destructive. He had moved with purpose, always heading southeast before being blocked and redirected by staff. The items he targeted weren't random either. He'd bypassed valuable equipment to knock over specific cabinets and desks. With permission to examine Max, Olivia entered his kennel with caution. He remained perfectly still as she checked his vitals and ran her hands along his aging frame. No signs of pain that might explain his behavior. When she was done, Max immediately went to the corner of the kennel and began scratching at the concrete floor. "Stop that," she commanded gently. But when she moved to interrupt him, she saw what he was doing. The scratches weren't random. They formed an arrow pointing southeast. A chill ran down her spine. Max wasn't having a psychotic break. He was trying to communicate. She quickly checked him for any sign of physical injury that could explain his behavior, but found nothing obvious. His medical history showed a routine checkup just 2 weeks ago, clean bill of health, except for his chronic arthritis. "What are you trying to tell me, Max?" she whispered. Richard appeared at the door, making her jump. "Any medical explanation for this morning?" "I need more time," Olivia said, straightening up. "There's something not right here. Richard, Max is trying to tell us something." Richard's expression hardened. "Don't anthropomorphize him. Doctor, he's a dog with age-related issues, not Lassie." "He's a highly trained canine officer," Olivia countered. "These dogs are taught to alert to specific threats, to communicate findings. I think that's what he's doing." "You have until 4 o'clock, Richard said firmly. "I've already called animal control to collect the body." After he left, Olivia knelt beside Max. "Show me," she whispered. She took Max on a leash to the yard, closely supervised by 2 staff members. Rather than running or acting aggressively, Max tugged her deliberately southeast, toward the maintenance sheds. When blocked, he circled back to her, making eye contact, then tried again. The pattern was unmistakable. Olivia's mind raced. Max's handler, Detective Mitchell, had visited just a week ago. Had something happened since then? She recalled Mitchell mentioning he was working a new case, something that had brought him to this area repeatedly. "I need to check something," she told the staff, leading Max back to isolation. "And I need to make a call." She had exactly 6 hours to decipher what Max was trying to tell them, and why it was worth risking his life to communicate. Olivia sat alone in the veterinary office, scrubbing through security footage for the 3rd time. Something wasn't adding up. Max's rampage hadn't started randomly. It began precisely 4 minutes after night watchman Mark Jensen had passed his kennel at 6:03 a.m. She zoomed in on that interaction. Jensen, normally casual during his rounds, had stopped at Max's kennel for nearly 30 seconds. His posture was tense, leaning in as if saying something directly to the dog. Max's reaction was immediate alert posture, ears forward. Whatever Jensen had said or done had triggered everything that followed. "Who are you, really?" "Mark Jensen," Olivia murmured, pulling up his employee file. Nothing suspicious jumped out. 52 years old, retired security guard, hired 8 months ago with decent references. No red flags. A sharp knock interrupted her thoughts. Carol Whitman entered, carrying a tray with coffee and sandwiches. "Thought you might need this," Carol said, setting the tray down. Her kind eyes were troubled. "Any progress?" "Something set Max off," Olivia said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "He's trying to communicate something specific. I just can't figure out what." Carol sighed. "Richard thinks you're prolonging the inevitable. He's concerned about liability." "Max saved lives for 8 years," Olivia said. "He deserves more than 6 hours of investigation before we put him down." After Carol left, Olivia closed her eyes, trying to think. Something was nagging at the edges of her memory, something about Max specifically. The realization hit her like a thunderbolt. 3 years ago, she'd been hiking alone in the mountains outside Denver when she'd fallen down a ravine, breaking her leg and losing her cell phone. Lost and injured. She'd spent a terrifying night exposed to the elements before being found by a search and rescue team with a German shepherd who had tracked her scent over miles of wilderness. She'd never learned the dog's name. She'd been in too much pain, focused on the rescue crew lifting her onto a stretcher. But those distinctive amber eyes, the white splash on the chest. "It was you," she whispered, pulling up Max's service record with trembling hands. The dates matched. Max and Detective Mitchell had been part of the search team that found her. With renewed determination, Olivia returned to the isolation kennel. This time, she dismissed the supervising staff. "I need to conduct some specialized tests," she explained. "Behavioral assessments." Alone with Max, she knelt before the kennel. "You found me once," she said quietly. "Now I need to find whatever you're looking for." Max's response was immediate, a soft whine and intense focus. When she opened the kennel door, he didn't bolt. Instead, he padded to the water bowl in the corner and deliberately knocked it over. Then began pawing at the small puddle, creating marks on the concrete floor. Olivia's breath caught. He wasn't being destructive, he was drawing. In the dampness, his claws created dark lines that formed what looked like an arrow. And something else. Letters. She quickly took photos with her phone before the water dried. Cleaning up the mess, she found something else, small drops of blood mixed with the water. Examining Max more closely, she discovered his front paws were raw, the nails cracked from his efforts to communicate. He had literally been wearing himself to the bone trying to send a message. "I'm listening now," she whispered, bandaging his paws. "Show me." With Max securely leashed, Olivia convinced the staff to allow a controlled therapeutic walk around the sanctuary perimeter. Max led her deliberately, no longer pulling frantically but moving with purpose toward the southeast corner of the property where a small equipment shed stood partially hidden by drought-resistant landscaping. "This is where you've been trying to go all morning," she realized. The shed appeared ordinary, a simple structure for storing gardening equipment. But Max became increasingly agitated as they approached, his body rigid with alertness. When she opened the door, he darted inside, heading straight for a pile of burlap sacks and dry leaves in the corner. Olivia moved the debris aside, revealing a portion of the plywood floor that looked slightly different, newer, less weathered than the surrounding boards. Max pawed urgently at the edge. "Stand back," she commanded, finding a crowbar on a nearby shelf. The plywood panel lifted easily, revealing a small hollow space beneath. Olivia expected to find Detective Mitchell instead. She found only his badge, a torn piece of blood-stained shirt, and a folded piece of paper. Her hands shook as she unfolded the note. Recognizing Mitchell's handwriting, "Whitman involved. Exotic animals. Call Henderson." A cold weight settled in her stomach. Richard Whitman, the respected director, former Marine, pillar of the community involved in something criminal. And where was Mitchell? The pieces began clicking into place. Mitchell's increased visits over the past month, his casual questions about sanctuary operations, his interest in the delivery schedules and storage facilities. Max hadn't gone crazy. He'd recognized something, a scent, a signal that told him his partner was in danger. And now Mitchell was missing, possibly injured, while the clock ticked down on Max's life. Olivia carefully photographed everything before replacing it exactly as she'd found it. If Whitman was involved in something illegal, she couldn't risk alerting him. Back in her office, Olivia tried to make sense of Mitchell's cryptic note. Exotic animals could mean many things, but given the sanctuary's remote location and medical facilities, a disturbing possibility emerged. The illegal wildlife trade was a multi-billion-dollar industry, with rare animal parts fetching astronomical prices on the black market. She pulled up the sanctuary's supply records, looking for anything unusual. The medical supply orders had increased dramatically over the past year, particularly ketamine, a sedative used for animal surgeries but also perfect for tranquilizing captured wildlife. A knock at the door made her quickly close the records. Richard Whitman entered without waiting for a response. "How's the assessment going?" he asked, his voice friendly but his eyes sharp. "Still conducting tests," Olivia replied carefully. "His blood work shows some anomalies. I'd like to run more." Whitman's smile didn't reach his eyes. The board's decision was clear. "Olivia?" 4 o'clock. "Of course." She nodded. "I just want to be thorough." After he left, Olivia tried calling the number for Henderson that she'd found in Mitchell's personnel file. The call wouldn't connect cell service in the sanctuary, had always been spotty. But now she wondered if that was intentional. She glanced at her watch, 12:30 p.m., 3.5 hours until Max's scheduled euthanasia. 3.5 hours to find Mitchell and expose whatever was happening at Second Chance without getting herself killed in the process. Max wasn't the one who needed saving, she realized. He was trying to save someone else. And now, they were both running out of time. Olivia pocketed Mitchell's badge and note, her mind racing. She needed more evidence and, more urgently, needed to find the detective if he was still alive. The blood-stained shirt fragment suggested he was injured, but not how severely. "Dr. Hayes." Paula appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Whitman asked me to assist you for the rest of the day." Convenient timing. Olivia forced a smile. "Thanks. Paula, I'm just finishing up some paperwork on Max before the procedure." She needed to move carefully now. If Richard was monitoring her movements, any suspicious behavior could alert him. She had to appear to be simply doing her job, preparing to euthanize a dangerous animal while secretly investigating. "Could you pull Max's complete medical history for me?" Olivia asked. "And I'd like to compare it with any incidents of aggression we've had with other retired K-9s. Research purposes." As Paula left to gather the files, Olivia quickly composed an email to her former Army colleague who now worked with the Fish and Wildlife Service. She kept it vague, just asking if there were any ongoing investigations into wildlife trafficking in Arizona. She couldn't risk being explicit, but hoped he might connect the dots. She couldn't leave the sanctuary to search for Mitchell, not with Max's life on the line and Paula watching her. She needed help from the outside. But with cell service mysteriously non-functional and the landlines potentially monitored, options were limited. Her computer chimed with an incoming email, not from her wildlife contact, but from Carol Whitman, containing the supply invoices she'd requested earlier. Scrolling through them, a pattern emerged. The sanctuary had dramatically increased orders of shipping containers with specialized cooling capabilities over the past 8 months. the official purpose storing medication. But the quantities were wildly disproportionate to their animal population. A perfect front for moving animal parts. "Here are the files you requested," Paula said, returning with a stack of folders. "Thanks. Could you also bring Max to the examination room? I want to do one final assessment." Alone with the files, Olivia quickly leafed through them. Nothing unusual in Max's medical history until she noticed small discrepancies in the medication logs. Certain controlled substances were being recorded as administered to animals that, according to other records, weren't even at the sanctuary on those dates. Someone was siphoning drugs, and the paperwork discrepancies had been cleverly spread across multiple animals to avoid detection. It wasn't just exotic animals the sanctuary was also being used to divert prescription medications. When Paula brought Max to the examination room, Olivia noted his alert posture. Despite his raw paws and the stress of the morning, the old warrior remained focused. She ran through standard neurological tests, carefully narrating her actions for Paula's benefit while examining Max more thoroughly. "I'm going to check his joints," she explained, running her hands along Max's legs. As she leaned close to his ear, she whispered, "I'm trying to help. Mitchell, where—" Max's ears twitched slightly at Mitchell's name. When she moved to his other side, he deliberately shifted his weight to press against her, his muzzle pointing toward the window southeast again, toward the maintenance buildings. "His arthritis is particularly bad today," Olivia commented for Paula's benefit. "The stress has exacerbated his condition. I'd like to give him something for the pain before the final procedure." "Mr. Whitman said no medications," Paula replied. "He was specific about that." "Interesting." Wanting to avoid drugs in Max's system could suggest Richard was concerned about a potential autopsy revealing something. Another red flag. "Fine. Then I'd like to let him outside one last time," Olivia said. "It's the humane thing to do." Paula hesitated, then nodded. "The small enclosure only. I'll have to stay with you." Outside, Max immediately headed to the southeast corner of the enclosure, the closest point to where he'd been trying to go all morning. He pawed at the ground, then looked up at Olivia with such human-like intensity that she felt a chill run down her spine. "He's agitated again," Paula observed nervously. "Maybe we should take him back inside." "Just a minute more," Olivia said, kneeling to check Max's bandaged paws. As she did, she whispered, "Tonight, I'll come back." Max's slight tail wag was his only acknowledgement. Back in her office, Olivia searched through employee records, focusing on Mark Jensen, the night watchman. His background check looked thorough at first glance, but something nagged at her. His previous employment history listed Summit Security Services in Denver, the same city where Mitchell and Max had served. She opened a new browser tab and searched for Summit Security Services. No results. The company didn't exist. Diving deeper into Jensen's file, she found his emergency contact Laura Jensen listed as his sister, but the personnel photo showed a man with blue eyes, while his driver's license copy showed brown eyes. Small discrepancy, easily missed, or a different person entirely. "What are you doing?" Richard's voice made her jump. He stood in the doorway, expression unreadable. "Final documentation for Max," she said smoothly, closing the personnel file. "And reviewing our protocols for aggressive animals. If this could happen with Max, we need better safeguards." Richard entered, closing the door behind him. "You've always been thorough, Olivia. It's what makes you valuable here." His tone held a warning note. "But sometimes you need to know when to let go." 4:00, she assured him. "I just want to understand what happened. 8 years of service without incident. Then suddenly this. Animals are unpredictable, even the best trained ones." Richard picked up the framed photo on her desk, Olivia with her father at his canine training facility. "Your father understood that, didn't he? Dogs are tools, ultimately, tools that sometimes break." The casual dismissal of Max's intelligence and loyalty angered her, but she kept her expression neutral. "I'll be ready at 4. After Richard left, Olivia checked her watch, 1:45 p.m., just over 2 hours remaining. She needed to see what was in the maintenance buildings, but couldn't risk going there directly while being watched. Instead, she called the front office. "This is Dr. Hayes. I need someone to check Building 3 for my missing stethoscope. I might have left it there during last week's wellness checks." A maintenance worker was dispatched. 10 minutes later, he reported back no stethoscope found, but the building was locked, which was unusual during daytime hours. Olivia's suspicion deepened. Building 3 housed the sanctuary's larger medical equipment, including a walk-in freezer for storing medications and biological samples. It was never locked during operational hours. A knock at her door revealed Carol Whitman, looking concerned. "How's it going with Max?" she asked, closing the door behind her. Olivia weighed her options. Carol had always been kind, ethical, passionate about the animals, but she was also Richard's wife. Could she be trusted? "Carol," Olivia said carefully, "has Richard seemed different to you lately? Stressed, secretive?" Carol's expression tightened. "Why do you ask? Max's behavior isn't random aggression. He's trying to communicate something." Olivia kept her voice low. "And I think it might be connected to Detective Mitchell." "James Mitchell," Carol frowned. "Richard said he called to cancel his visit this week. Some case he's working on." "When exactly did he call?" 2 days ago. Richard took the call in his office." Carol's frown deepened. "Olivia, what's going on?" Olivia made a split-second decision. "I think Mitchell might be in trouble. Max started acting strangely after Jensen visited his kennel this morning. And I found this." She showed Carol the blood-stained shirt fragment, carefully watching her reaction. Carol's face drained of color. "Oh my God," she whispered. "I knew something wasn't right." "What do you mean?" Carol glanced nervously at the door. "Financial problems. Richard said we were getting a special grant to cover our deficit, but wouldn't tell me the details. And there have been deliveries at night, trucks coming and going when the sanctuary should be closed." "Carol, I need to get into Building 3. Carol hesitated, then reached into her pocket and produced a key. "Be careful. Richard has been different. Frightening sometimes." "Thank you." "Can you create a distraction in about 20 minutes? Something to draw attention away from the maintenance area." Carol nodded grimly. "The backup generator? I can say it needs testing before the weekend." With a plan in motion, Olivia returned to her preparations, making a show of readying the euthanasia drugs. Paula watched from across the room. "It's sad," Paula commented. "He was such a good dog." "Yes," Olivia replied, filling a syringe with saline solution instead of pentobarbital. He still is. At exactly 2:30 p.m., the sanctuary's backup generator roared to life, its distinctive growl drawing attention from staff. Through her window, Olivia watched Richard hurry across the yard toward the main office, followed by several maintenance workers. "I need to check the refrigeration unit," she told Paula. "Power fluctuations can damage our medication stores." "I'll come with you," Paula offered. "No need. It'll just take a minute." Olivia grabbed her medical bag. "Can you finish preparing the room for Max? We'll need extra restraints, given his behavior this morning." Once outside, Olivia moved quickly toward Building 3, keeping to the shadows of the desert landscaping. The midday Arizona sun beat down mercilessly, providing perfect visibility, but also meaning she would be easily spotted if anyone looked her way. The key Carol provided worked smoothly. Inside Building 3, the temperature dropped dramatically thanks to the climate control system protecting the medical equipment. The main room appeared normal: examination tables, diagnostic machines, supplies. Nothing unusual. The walk-in freezer at the back, however, had an additional padlock not normally present. Olivia's heart sank. Carol's key wouldn't open this. Max would know where to look. If only she could bring him here without raising suspicions. As she examined the padlock, the building's door opened. Olivia ducked behind equipment, expecting Richard or security. Instead, Max padded in, followed by Carol. "Quick," Carol whispered. "Richard's distracted with the generator, but we only have minutes." Max went straight to the freezer, his nose working along the seam of the door. He pawed at a specific spot near the bottom, not the door itself, but the wall beside it. Olivia examined the area and found a slight indentation. Pressing it revealed a hidden panel containing a key. "How did you know?" she asked Max, who simply gave a soft woof in response. The key opened the padlock. Inside the freezer, behind rows of legitimate medications, they discovered a horrifying sight. Specialized containers labeled as medical supplies but containing what was clearly animal tissue organs, pelts, and other parts from endangered species, tiger gallbladders, bear bile, rhino horn, elephant ivory disguised as medical-grade calcium supplements. "My God," Carol gasped. "Richard is involved in this?" Olivia examined the containers, finding shipping labels with international destinations. This is a major trafficking operation. In the back corner, partially hidden behind shelving, she spotted something that made her blood freeze: a large freezer chest, padlocked and sealed, the type used for human remains. "Carol, get Max out of here," Olivia said urgently. "If Mitchell is—" She couldn't finish the sentence. The implications were too horrific. But before Carol could leave with Max, the building door slammed open. Richard stood there, security staff behind him, his face contorted with rage. "I should have known," he said coldly, looking at his wife. "You've always been too soft." "Richard," Carol stepped forward. "What have you done?" "What I had to do," he snapped. "Do you think this place runs on good intentions? The medical bills from your cancer nearly bankrupted us." Olivia slowly moved her hand toward the scalpel in her medical bag. "Where's Detective Mitchell?" Richard's smile was chilling. "Concerned citizen that I am. I called the police when I found evidence of trespassing. They should be here any minute." "They'll find your smuggling operation," Olivia countered. "They'll find exactly what I tell them to find." Richard replied. a dedicated sanctuary director who discovered his veterinarian stealing drugs, and her accomplice. He pointed at Max, an unstable, aggressive animal that tragically had to be put down after attacking staff. He raised a hand, revealing a pistol. "You've made this messier than it needed to be." "Olivia," Max growled, positioning himself protectively between Richard and the women. "Even old and arthritic, he's still trying to protect," Richard said with grudging admiration. "Too bad loyalty is wasted on animals who don't understand what they're fighting for." "That's where you're wrong," Olivia said. "Max understands loyalty better than you ever could." Richard raised the gun. "Move away from the freezer. Both of you." Olivia and Carol stepped aside, Max staying close to Olivia's leg. "The sheriff is on my payroll," Richard continued, gesturing them toward the door. "As is the county commissioner. This operation has powerful protection." "Is that why Jensen was checking on Max this morning?" Olivia asked, trying to buy time, to see if he'd recognized Mitchell's scent. A flicker of surprise crossed Richard's face. "Mark's usually more careful. That dog always was too smart for his own good." Outside, the sound of approaching vehicles filled the air patrol cars, their sirens silent but lights flashing. "Right on time," Richard said with satisfaction. "Carol, you're going to tell them Olivia attacked you when you caught her stealing medication." "Understand." Carol's face hardened. "I will not." "Then you'll join her. Your choice." His voice was matter-of-fact, devoid of emotion. Whatever love had once existed between them had clearly been consumed by greed. Max suddenly whined, his attention shifting to the freezer behind them. The sound was so deliberate that both Olivia and Richard turned to look. That moment of distraction was all Carol needed. She grabbed a nearby fire extinguisher and discharged it directly into Richard's face. He fired the gun blindly, the bullet embedding in the ceiling as he stumbled backward. Max launched forward despite his age and arthritis, his training overriding his physical limitations. His jaws clamped around Richard's wrist, forcing him to drop the weapon. Olivia kicked the gun away, then grabbed a roll of medical tape from her bag, quickly binding Richard's hands while he was still disoriented from the extinguisher chemicals. "Carol, get help!" she shouted. "Help. Tell them Mitchell may be in there." As Carol ran outside, Olivia turned her attention to the large freezer chest. The padlock required a key she didn't have. She looked around frantically, then grabbed a heavy oxygen tank from nearby. "Stand back, Max," she commanded, then brought the tank down on the padlock with all her strength. It took 3 blows before the lock gave way. Bracing herself for what she might find, she lifted the lid, heart pounding. Olivia lifted the freezer lid. Inside, packed in ice, were dozens of sealed medical containers, not human remains as she'd feared, but more animal parts. Relief flooded through her, quickly replaced by renewed worry. If Mitchell wasn't here, where was he? Max barked sharply, moving away from the subdued Richard toward the back wall of the freezer. His nose worked frantically along the seam where wall met floor, his bandaged paws leaving smears of blood on the sterile white surface. "What is it?" "Boy." Olivia followed, examining the area. The wall appeared solid, but when she pressed against it, she felt a slight give. "There's something behind here." Outside, voices grew louder, police entering the building. She had seconds to find whatever Max was indicating before Richard's corrupt officers took control of the scene. "Where's the entrance?" she demanded, kneeling beside Richard. "Mitchell is behind this wall, isn't he?" Richard glared at her, blood trickling from where Max had bitten his wrist. "You're finished. Doctor, Hayes, those officers work for me." Max's urgent barking intensified. He scratched at a specific spot on the floor, revealing what looked like a drainage grate. Olivia pulled at it, finding that the entire section lifted away, exposing a recessed handle. "Max, back," she commanded, pulling hard on the handle. A hidden door swung outward, revealing a narrow passage beyond a maintenance corridor for the freezer's external components, repurposed for a more sinister use. Cold air rushed out, carrying the unmistakable metallic scent of blood. Olivia grabbed a surgical penlight from her bag and peered inside. The beam illuminated a small concrete room, originally designed to house compressors and cooling equipment. Huddled against the far wall, barely conscious, was Detective James Mitchell. "James!" Olivia crawled through the narrow opening, Max squeezing in behind her despite his size. Mitchell's face was badly bruised, his breathing shallow. His wrists were raw from handcuffs that secured him to an exposed pipe, and his shirt was stained with dried blood. "Olivia," Mitchell's voice was a ragged whisper. His eyes widened at the sight of Max, who whined softly and licked his handler's face. "Max found me." "Hold on," Olivia said, examining his injuries with professional detachment to keep her rising panic at bay. "We're getting you out of here." Mitchell had been systematically beaten, broken ribs, possible internal bleeding, severe dehydration. But he was alive. Olivia worked quickly to free him from the handcuffs using a small lockpick set from her medical bag, a skill learned during her military service that she'd never expected to use stateside. "White man." Mitchell gasped between labored breaths. "Trafficking. Evidence on computer." "Save your strength," Olivia urged, supporting his weight as he slumped forward. "Max led me to you. He's been trying all day." A shadow fell across the hidden doorway. "Police hands, where I can see them." Olivia raised her hands slowly, turning to face a sheriff's deputy whose badge read Henderson. Her heart sank at the same name from Mitchell's note. One of Richard's corrupt officials. "Officer Henderson," she said carefully. "I'm Dr. Olivia Hayes, veterinarian. This man needs immediate medical attention." Henderson's eyes narrowed as he took in the scene: Mitchell's battered form, Max's protective stance, the cramped hidden room. Something shifted in his expression. "Detective Mitchell," he said, holstering his weapon and kneeling beside them. "I've been looking for you for 3 days." Mitchell's eyes flickered with recognition. "Sam. Henderson, Denver PD." Olivia's confusion must have shown on her face, because Henderson quickly explained, "James and I worked together in Denver. I transferred to Arizona last year. He contacted me about suspicious activity at this sanctuary, but then went silent." He spoke into his radio. "I need paramedics in Building 3 immediately. Officer down. Repeat. Officer down." "Whitman," Olivia said urgently. "He claims the local police are on his payroll." "Some might be," Henderson acknowledged grimly. "But the officers here now are state police, not local. We've been investigating wildlife trafficking across 3 states. Mitchell's disappearance accelerated our timeline. Relief washed over Olivia. They weren't alone. The next hour passed in a blur. Paramedics rushed Mitchell to the hospital while state police secured the sanctuary, detaining Richard and several staff members, including the night watchman Jensen, whose real identity was still unclear. Carol, pale but composed, provided a statement about the financial irregularities she'd noticed and the mysterious nighttime deliveries. Olivia stayed with Max, treating his injured paws more thoroughly and ensuring he received water and a mild painkiller for his arthritis, which had flared painfully after his morning exertions. The old warrior had pushed his body far beyond its limits today. "Officer Henderson wants to see you," Paula informed her, looking shell-shocked by the day's events. The vet tech had been cleared of involvement. She'd simply been following Richard's instructions without understanding their true purpose. Henderson waited in Richard's office, where state police computer specialists were already downloading files. "We've only scratched the surface," he told Olivia. "But what we're finding is significant. This operation has international connections, suppliers in Southeast Asia, buyers in Europe and China." The sanctuary was the perfect cover for receiving, processing, and shipping illegal wildlife products, and Mitchell discovered it. Henderson nodded. He noticed discrepancies in local police reports, crimes not being properly investigated, wildlife violations dismissed, started asking questions. He gestured to the computer. "Richard's records suggest at least 4 local officials are involved, including the sheriff." "What about Carol?" She seemed genuinely shocked. "We're still assessing her involvement, but preliminary evidence suggests she was kept in the dark. Richard manipulated the sanctuary's financial records to hide both their economic troubles and his illegal income stream." Max lay at Olivia's feet, exhausted but vigilant. Henderson regarded him with professional respect. "That's one hell of a dog," he said. "Mitchell always said Max was the best partner he ever had." "He was scheduled to be euthanized at 4 o'clock today," Olivia said, her voice catching. "Richard had convinced the board he was dangerous." Henderson checked his watch, 3:47 p.m. "Well, that's not happening now. This dog just helped break open a multi-million-dollar trafficking ring." "He needs to see Mitchell," Olivia urged. "Working dogs form intense bonds with their handlers. Knowing Mitchell is alive but not seeing him could cause significant stress." Henderson considered this, then nodded. "I'll arrange transport to the hospital, but first, we need your statement about everything that happened today." Olivia recounted the day's events in detail, Max's behavior, her suspicions, the discovery of Mitchell's badge in the hidden room. She described Richard's confession and attempted cover-up. "What made you trust the dog's behavior?" Henderson asked. "Most people would have dismissed it as aggression or dementia." "I grew up with canine officers," Olivia explained. "My father trained them for 30 years. You learn to recognize the difference between random behavior and intentional communication." She stroked Max's head gently. "And 3 years ago, a search and rescue team found me after a hiking accident. I never knew which dog it was until today. It was Max." Henderson raised his eyebrows. "So, he saved you, and then you saved him. Fitting." By 5:30 p.m., they had cleared transportation to Banner University Medical Center in Phoenix, where Mitchell had been taken. Max, freshly bandaged and moving gingerly from his arthritis, seemed to understand their destination. His alert posture returned as they loaded him into Olivia's SUV. Henderson following in his patrol car. During the drive, Olivia's phone rang Carol Whitman. "The state police are allowing me to keep the sanctuary running while the investigation continues," she said, her voice strained but determined. "They've seized our accounts, but assured me they'll expedite legitimate operational expenses." "How are you holding up?" Olivia asked. "I've been better," Carol admitted. 23 years of marriage, and I never suspected. When Richard said we needed money for my cancer treatments, I believed him. I never imagined he'd—" Her voice broke. "He made his choices. Carol, you didn't." The board convened an emergency meeting. Carol continued after collecting herself. "They've unanimously rescinded the euthanasia order for Max. In fact, they want to make him the sanctuary's official mascot. If Mitchell agrees, I'll let him know," Olivia promised. At the hospital, Henderson's badge smoothed their way. Mitchell had been moved to a private room after initial treatment, his condition serious but stable. 2 officers stood guard outside his door, a precaution against potential retaliation from Richard's criminal associates. "He's heavily sedated," the nurse warned as they entered. "Multiple broken ribs, concussion, dehydration. He's lucky to be alive." Mitchell lay still in the hospital bed, an oxygen cannula in his nose, IV lines delivering fluids and medication. His face was a mosaic of bruises, one eye swollen shut. Monitoring equipment beeped steadily, tracking his vital signs. Max approached cautiously, as if sensing the fragility of his partner. He sniffed Mitchell's hand where it lay atop the blanket, then gave it a gentle lick. The detective's fingers twitched in response. "Max." Mitchell's voice was barely audible, his good eye opening slightly. "You found me, buddy?" Max whined softly, resting his muzzle on the edge of the bed. Mitchell's hand moved weakly to stroke the dog's head. "Knew you would," he whispered. "Good boy." The simple interaction brought tears to Olivia's eyes. This powerful bond handler and canine, forged through years of trust and teamwork, had overcome seemingly impossible odds. Max had refused to give up, had communicated his urgent message despite every obstacle, had pushed his aging body to its limits to save his partner. "He was scheduled to be euthanized today," Henderson told Mitchell quietly. "Whitman claimed he'd become aggressive, dangerous." Mitchell's hand tightened slightly in Max's fur. "Never. He's the best of us." A doctor entered, frowning at the presence of a dog in the hospital room. "This is highly irregular," he began. "This is a police K-9 who located the victim." Henderson interceded smoothly. "His presence is necessary for the victim's psychological recovery and our ongoing investigation." The doctor looked skeptical but relented after checking Mitchell's stable vital signs. 5 minutes, he conceded. When they were alone again, Mitchell struggled to speak. "The evidence." "Secure," Henderson assured him. "State police have Whitman and the sanctuary's records. The operation is shut down." "Not just animals," Mitchell managed. "Human trafficking connection. Photos in his private safe. Behind painting in office." Henderson straightened. "I'll call it in immediately." He stepped outside to make the call, leaving Olivia with Mitchell and Max. "Thank you," Mitchell said to Olivia, his voice fading as the medication pulled him toward sleep. "For believing in him?" "He made it impossible not to," she replied softly. "He never gave up on you." Mitchell's eyes closed, his breathing evening out as he drifted into much-needed healing sleep. Max settled on the floor beside the bed, his vigilant gaze never leaving his partner's face. Despite his own pain and exhaustion, the old canine had resumed his most fundamental duty, watching over his handler. Olivia checked her watch. 6:13 p.m. Just over 12 hours since Max's rampage had begun. The scheduled euthanasia time had come and gone, replaced by a far different outcome than anyone could have predicted this morning. Max wasn't dangerous, he was a hero. And his actions today had not only saved Mitchell's life, but potentially many others by exposing a major criminal enterprise. As Henderson returned with news that a hidden safe had indeed been discovered in Richard's office, Olivia watched Max maintain his protective position beside Mitchell. Despite age and injury, in this moment, the German Shepherd embodied everything noble about his breed and his profession: loyalty, intelligence, and unbreakable courage. Today, Max had proven that retirement hadn't diminished any of the qualities that made him an exceptional canine officer. If anything, it had distilled them to their purest form. The next 3 days unfolded in a whirlwind of medical procedures, police interviews, and media attention. Mitchell's condition stabilized, though doctors warned his recovery would be lengthy. 3 broken ribs, a hairline skull fracture, severe dehydration, and extensive soft tissue damage painted a grim picture of his ordeal in Richard Whitman's hidden freezer room. Max refused to leave Mitchell's side, creating an unprecedented situation for hospital administration. After initial objections, the hospital director, whose daughter had been rescued by a canine unit years earlier, granted a special exemption, allowing Max to remain, provided Olivia took responsibility for his care and cleanliness. The story exploded across national news. Retired canine saves detective from wildlife trafficking ring. Reporters camped outside the hospital, clamoring for interviews and photographs. The public's fascination with the loyal German Shepherd, who had gone on rampage to save his handler, captured hearts across the country. On the investigations front, the evidence trail led to shocking revelations. Richard Whitman's hidden safe contained not only financial records of the wildlife trafficking operation, but also photographs and documents linking him to human trafficking. Young women from Southeast Asia, brought to the U.S. under promises of legitimate work, had been transported in the same vehicles used for animal products. "It's worse than we thought," Henderson told Olivia during a quiet moment in Mitchell's hospital room. "Whitman wasn't just a middleman, he was a key organizer, using the sanctuary's reputation and his standing in the community to move products and people across state lines." "How did no one notice?" Olivia asked, watching Max doze fitfully at the foot of Mitchell's bed. The old dog's paws were healing, but his arthritis had worsened after his desperate efforts. She'd started him on stronger anti-inflammatory medications, knowing they were only a temporary solution. "People see what they expect to see," Henderson replied. "A respected former Marine running an animal sanctuary above suspicion. Meanwhile, he's moving millions in illegal goods through the property." Mitchell stirred in his hospital bed, consciousness returning in increasingly longer intervals. "Max," he called weakly. Immediately, despite his pain, Max raised his head and shifted position to place his muzzle within reach of Mitchell's hand. The detective's fingers curled weakly in the dog's fur. "Right here, buddy," Mitchell whispered. We got him. The bond between the two survivors brought tears to Olivia's eyes. 8 years of partnership, of trusting each other with their lives, had created a connection that transcended verbal communication. Even now, injured and weakened, they drew strength from each other's presence. Meanwhile, Carol Whitman faced her own devastating reality. Her husband of 23 years was revealed as a criminal mastermind who had used her cancer diagnosis as an excuse to begin his illegal operations. The sanctuary she had helped build, meant to be a haven for retired service animals, had become a front for unspeakable cruelty. "I should have known," she told Olivia during a hospital visit, her face gaunt with grief and shame. The late-night phone calls, the locked buildings, Richard becoming so controlling about the finances. "You couldn't have known," Olivia insisted. "He deliberately kept you in the dark." "Because he knew I wouldn't stand for it," Carol said bitterly. "He used my illness as the starting point, claiming we needed money for treatments my insurance wouldn't cover. I believed him." She watched Max, who had lifted his head at her voice. "At least something good came from all this. Max saved Mitchell, and together they saved countless animals and people from suffering." The sanctuary's future hung in balance as state authorities combed through years of records. Most staff had been cleared of involvement, having unwittingly participated in what they believed was legitimate work. The board of directors, horrified by the revelations, voted unanimously to cooperate fully with authorities and implement stringent new oversight measures. 4 days after Max's rampage, Mitchell was strong enough to give his full statement. Henderson recorded the detective's account of how his routine inquiry into wildlife trafficking had led him to Second Chance Animal Sanctuary. "I noticed shipping manifests that didn't add up," Mitchell explained, his voice still weak. "Deliveries at odd hours, tax write-offs for medical equipment that wasn't visible during tours. When I started asking questions, Richard invited me to see their expanded facilities after hours. He described being ambushed by Richard and 2 unidentified men, beaten unconscious and imprisoned in the hidden room. For 3 days, they had questioned him about what he knew and who else was involved in his investigation. They were planning to move me," Mitchell said grimly. "I overheard them talking about a disposal site in the desert. That's when I managed to tear off part of my shirt and leave my badge in the shed. I hoped Max might pick up my scent during his next visit." "But you were scheduled to visit the following week," Henderson noted. "How did Max know you were there now?" Mitchell smiled weakly. "Mark Jensen, or whatever his real name is, made a mistake. He came to check my holding cell wearing the same clothes he wore to walk the grounds. When he visited Max's kennel that morning, Max would have detected my scent mixed with fear pheromones. For a dog with Max's training, that's a 5-alarm fire." Olivia marveled at the precision of Max's sensory abilities, even in his advanced age. He knew exactly what it meant. Didn't he? Canines like Max are trained to alert to their handler's distress above all else. Mitchell confirmed, "We're their primary responsibility, even retired. That training doesn't fade." The medical updates were less optimistic. Mitchell would recover, though with potential lasting impacts from his injuries. Max's situation was more concerning. The veterinary specialists Olivia consulted confirmed what she already feared: his desperate efforts to save Mitchell had accelerated his degenerative joint disease. The latest X-rays showed severe deterioration in his hips and spine. He pushed himself too hard, she explained gently to Mitchell as they reviewed Max's scans in the hospital room. His body was already compromised by age and arthritis, the stress and physical exertion of that day. "How long?" Mitchell asked, his face tight with grief. "Maybe 6 months with aggressive treatment. He's in considerable pain. James." Mitchell's hand sought Max's head, gently stroking behind his ears. "After everything he's done, all the lives he's saved, mine, twice over." His voice broke. "It's not fair." "No," Olivia agreed softly. "It's not." Max looked between them, his intelligent eyes seeming to understand the gravity of their conversation. He pressed closer to Mitchell, as if to comfort his handler rather than seek comfort himself. That night, as Olivia prepared to leave the hospital, she found Mitchell sitting up in bed, Max beside him, engaged in what appeared to be a one-sided conversation. "You never gave up on me," Mitchell was saying quietly. "Even when everyone thought you'd lost your mind. Even when they were ready to." He couldn't finish the sentence. "I won't give up on you either, buddy. Whatever time you have left, we'll make it count. No more kennels. No more separation. You're coming home with me." Max's tail thumped weakly against the hospital bed. Olivia slipped away quietly, giving them privacy in this intimate moment of reckoning. The tragedy of Max's deteriorating health cast a shadow over the triumph of the case. The very actions that had cemented his legacy as a hero would also hasten his end. The following morning, Arizona's Attorney General held a press conference announcing the breaking of one of the largest wildlife and human trafficking rings in the Southwest. Photos of the seized contraband filled television screens, nationwide exotic animal parts worth millions. Documentation of human trafficking victims, offshore account details. Richard Whitman and 4 co-conspirators, including 2 local law enforcement officers, faced multiple federal charges. The night watchman, Jensen, was identified as Alexei Petrov, a known facilitator for international trafficking operations. The investigation had expanded to 3 neighboring states, with more arrests expected. But for every mention of the sophisticated criminal enterprise, the media gave equal attention to the aging German shepherd who had broken the case wide open. Max became an overnight symbol of loyalty and courage, his story resonating far beyond the law enforcement community. What the public didn't know, what Olivia, Mitchell, and the medical team kept private, was the cost of Max's heroism. As camera crews captured footage of the dignified shepherd resting beside Mitchell's hospital bed, they couldn't see the pain medications flowing through his system, or know that each movement caused him suffering. "He deserves better than this," Mitchell told Olivia, watching Max sleep fitfully, "after everything he's given." The tragedy wasn't just that Max was dying. All dogs face that eventually. The tragedy was that his final act of service, the culmination of a career defined by unwavering loyalty, had accelerated his suffering. The very qualities that made him extraordinary, his determination, his courage, his refusal to give up on his handler, had hastened his end. And yet, watching Max's steady vigilance beside Mitchell, Olivia wondered if the old warrior would have chosen any differently, even knowing the cost. Some bonds transcended self-preservation, some loyalties were worth any price. 1 week after Max's desperate mission to save his handler, Mitchell was discharged from the hospital. The media assembled outside, cameras tracking the detective's slow, painful progress in a wheelchair, with Max walking gingerly by his side. Though both moved with the careful deliberation of the injured, their dignified procession spoke volumes about shared resilience. Detective Mitchell, how does it feel knowing your canine partner saved your life? A reporter called out. Mitchell paused, his hand dropping to rest on Max's head. Max didn't just save me, he answered, voice still raspy from his ordeal. He saved countless animals from slaughter and people from trafficking. That's who he is. That's who he's always been. The truth about Max's deteriorating condition remained private, a burden shared only by those closest to the situation. The public saw a heroic recovery. The reality was far more complex. Olivia had arranged for Mitchell to temporarily move into her guest house, a small structure behind her main residence originally built for her father before his passing. The arrangement served multiple purposes. Mitchell needed ongoing medical care that would be difficult to manage alone in his apartment, and Max needed constant veterinary monitoring that Olivia could provide. "It's just until you're back on your feet," she assured Mitchell as she helped settle him into the simply furnished space. "And it's better for Max to avoid stairs right now." Mitchell saw through her careful phrasing. "You mean it's better for him to be near someone who can help when the pain gets too bad?" She didn't deny it. "Yes." Max explored the guest house with muted interest, his movements measured and deliberate where once he would have thoroughly investigated every corner. He selected a spot near Mitchell's bed and eased himself down with a soft groan that broke both humans' hearts. "I've started him on a stronger pain management protocol," Olivia explained, setting out labeled medication containers on the kitchenette counter. "These will help with inflammation. These manage the pain directly. The side effects can be rough potential kidney issues, digestive problems, but at this point, quality over quantity," Mitchell finished for her. "I understand." That night, Olivia was awakened by a soft whine outside her bedroom door. She opened it to find Max standing there, trembling slightly from pain and effort. "Hey, buddy," she whispered, kneeling beside him. "Rough night." The intelligent eyes that met hers held something beyond physical discomfort concern. He turned his head toward the guest house, then back to her. "Mitchell is something wrong with Mitchell." Max gave a soft woof of confirmation, heart racing. Olivia quickly grabbed her medical bag and followed Max, who moved with surprising urgency despite his condition. Inside the guest house, she found Mitchell struggling to breathe, his face ashen, one arm clutched across his chest. "Pneumonia," she diagnosed quickly, recognizing the symptoms from her medical training. "The broken ribs make it hard to clear your lungs properly." She immediately called for an ambulance. While they waited, she administered emergency oxygen from her medical supplies and helped position Mitchell to ease his breathing. Max stayed pressed against his handler's side, his concern palpable. "He woke me," Mitchell gasped between labored breaths. "Wouldn't stop until I was awake. Knew something was wrong. He came to get me," Olivia told him, checking his pulse. "He knew you needed help." The ambulance arrived within minutes, whisking Mitchell back to the hospital. Pneumonia was a serious complication with broken ribs, but caught early, it was treatable. Once again, Max's vigilance had potentially saved his handler's life. Left alone with Max, Olivia examined him more thoroughly than she had been able to at the hospital. What she found confirmed her worst fears. His condition was deteriorating faster than expected. The extreme exertion of his RAMPAGE, combined with the stress of the past week, had accelerated the degenerative process. His pain, despite the medications, was clearly becoming unmanageable. "Oh, Max," she whispered, gentle fingers probing his swollen joints. "You just keep giving, don't you?" The following morning, Henderson arrived with news about the investigation. "Richard Whitman is cooperating," he reported, accepting the coffee Olivia offered. "Trying to save himself by giving up his contacts. The operation spans at least 5 countries. Max lay nearby, ears perked despite his obvious discomfort. "The FBI has taken over the human trafficking angle," Henderson continued. "At least 12 women have been identified as victims, brought in through the same channels as the animal products. 3 are still missing." "And Carol?" Olivia asked. "Cleared of involvement. The forensic accountants confirmed she had no access to the operation's finances. She's cooperating fully, turning over every document she can find." Henderson's expression softened. "She's also volunteered to testify against her husband. That can't be easy." "No, but she's determined to make amends, even though she wasn't personally responsible." Henderson glanced at Max. "How's he doing?" Olivia hesitated, then decided honesty was needed. "Not good. The medication helps. But we're fighting a losing battle. His body is shutting down." Henderson nodded grimly. "And Mitchell, back in the hospital with pneumonia. Max alerted me last night when Mitchell's breathing deteriorated. Even now, still on duty," Henderson observed quietly. The conversation was interrupted by Olivia's phone. The hospital. Mitchell's condition had stabilized, but he would need to remain hospitalized for at least another week. The doctor strongly recommended against bringing Max to visit due to infection risk. "He'll be devastated," Olivia said after ending the call. "Both of them will be." That evening, Max refused his dinner, a serious warning sign. His breathing had become more labored, and he struggled to find a comfortable position. Olivia adjusted his medication, but knew they were approaching the limits of what was safe to administer. "Mitchell needs to know," she told Henderson when he called to check in. "Max's condition is accelerating. We may be looking at days, not months." The state police officer arrived the next morning with an unexpected proposal. "What if we bring Mitchell here? Not discharged a supervised medical visit. I've spoken with his doctor. With proper precautions and a nurse in attendance, they believe a short visit could be managed." "You could do that. For the canine who broke open our biggest case in years, watch me." True to his word, Henderson arranged everything. By that afternoon, a medical transport brought Mitchell to Olivia's property, accompanied by a nurse and oxygen equipment. They settled him in a recliner on Olivia's patio, where Max could visit without navigating the guest house steps. The reunion was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. Max, who had been lethargic all morning, transformed at the sight of his handler. He limped to Mitchell's side, tail wagging weakly, eyes bright with recognition and love. "Hey, partner," Mitchell said softly. His own voice strained from his lung infection. His hand found the familiar spot behind Max's ears. "Heard you've been having a rough time," Olivia and Henderson discreetly stepped inside, giving them privacy. Through the window, they watched the silent communion between man and dog, two wounded warriors whose bond transcended their suffering. "I've seen a lot in this job," Henderson said quietly, "but nothing like those two." When they returned outside 30 minutes later, the maximum time the doctor had approved for Mitchell's visit, they found Mitchell talking softly to Max, who rested his head on his handler's lap. "Best years of my career. Working with you." Mitchell was saying, "Remember that warehouse in Boulder? You found those kids everyone else had given up on. 3 days missing in freezing temperatures. And you tracked them to that abandoned basement." Max's tail thumped weakly against the patio stones. "Or that armed security guy outside Black Eagle Casino had his weapon drawn, and you took him down before he could even turn around. Fastest takedown the captain had ever seen." The one-sided reminiscence continued, Mitchell recounting their greatest hits, their most memorable cases, the lives they had saved together. It wasn't just for Max's benefit, it was Mitchell processing the imminent loss of his partner, finding a way to say goodbye. "Time to head back, Detective," the nurse said gently after checking her watch. Mitchell's hand tightened in Max's fur. "I know what you need me to say," he whispered to the dog. "I know you're holding on for me, but I'm going to be okay, buddy. You've done your job, above and beyond, as always." Max raised his head. Amber eyes locked on Mitchell's face. "You can rest now." Mitchell continued, voice breaking. "You've earned it more than anyone I know." Henderson turned away, blinking rapidly. Olivia felt tears tracking down her own cheeks. As Mitchell was being helped back to the medical transport, he caught Olivia's hand. "When it's time," he said quietly, "don't let him suffer because I'm not here. Promise me." "I promise," she whispered. That night, Olivia made up a bed on her living room floor, allowing Max to sleep beside her rather than alone in the guest house. He settled with a sigh, accepting the extra pain medication she administered without his usual reluctance. The truth hung heavy in the air. Max was ready to go. He had completed his final mission, saving Mitchell one last time. He had seen his handler, confirmed he was recovering, received permission to rest. The only thing keeping him tethered to his failing body was his sense of duty. In the early hours of the morning, Olivia woke to Max's labored breathing. She knelt beside him, checking his vitals with a heavy heart. His pulse was erratic, his extremities cool to the touch. The end was near. "It's okay," she told him softly, stroking his graying muzzle. "Mitchell is safe. You saved him. Max, mission accomplished." Max's eyes found hers in the dim light, a silent communication passing between them. Recognition, understanding, perhaps even gratitude. Olivia stayed beside him, providing comfort and companionship as his breathing grew more labored. She could have called the emergency vet, could have tried heroic measures, but she knew that wasn't what Max needed now. He had given everything. He deserved a peaceful passage. As dawn broke over the Arizona desert, Max took one final, shuddering breath and was still. Olivia bowed her head, tears falling freely as she continued to stroke his thick fur. good boy," she whispered. "The very best boy." The news of Max's passing spread quickly. Henderson came immediately, helping Olivia prepare Max's body with dignity. Together, they wrapped him in a clean blanket emblazoned with the Denver Police Department's K-9 unit insignia, a gift Mitchell had brought when delivering Max to the sanctuary months earlier. At the hospital, Mitchell received the news with stoic grief. Unable to attend to his partner in person, he requested something that broke Olivia's heart anew. "Can you put his badge with him? It's in my locker at the precinct. He earned it more than most officers with 2 legs." Henderson retrieved the badge, a custom K-9 badge with Max's name and ID number, worn on his working harness during his years of service. Olivia placed it carefully on Max's chest before the blanket was folded over him. What should have been a private moment of mourning transformed as word spread through law enforcement channels. By afternoon, police cruisers from departments across 3 counties had assembled outside the veterinary crematorium where Max would be cremated. Officers in formal uniforms stood at attention as Henderson and 2 state troopers carried Max's blanket-wrapped body inside. "I didn't arrange this," Henderson said, visibly moved by the spontaneous show of respect. "They're here because of who he was," Olivia replied softly. "What he stood for." As the sun set on the day of Max's passing, the first reports began coming, and 3 missing women from the trafficking ring had been located based on information Richard Whitman provided in his continuing effort to reduce his sentence. The wildlife smuggling network was unraveling as arrests mounted across multiple countries. Max's final case, the one that had cost him his remaining strength and ultimately his life, continued to save lives even after he was gone. The loyal K-9, who had given everything in service to others, was still, somehow, making the world better. In the quiet of her home that night, Olivia sat with the hollow ache of loss, comforted only by the knowledge that Max had died as he had lived with purpose, with courage, and with unfailing loyalty to the end. 6 months after Max's passing, summer heat gave way to the gentler warmth of an Arizona autumn. Olivia stood on the newly constructed observation deck of Second Chance Animal Sanctuary, watching volunteers lead retired service animals through morning exercises. The sanctuary had transformed dramatically since the dark days of Richard Whitman's criminal enterprise. Carol Whitman had resigned as director, feeling her presence would always be a reminder of the sanctuary's darkest chapter. She remained involved as a volunteer, channeling her grief and betrayal into positive action. The board had unanimously voted for Olivia to take over as medical director, giving her authority to implement comprehensive reforms. "Quite a change," James Mitchell observed, joining her at the railing. His physical recovery had been grueling but successful. While he would never regain full lung capacity due to the scarring from his pneumonia, he had returned to limited duty with the department, focusing on investigative work rather than field operations. "It's becoming what it always should have been," Olivia replied. "A true sanctuary. Below them, retired police horses, military dogs, and even a former dolphin from a naval research program enjoyed specialized care tailored to their unique needs." The wildlife trafficking scandal had brought unexpected attention and funding, allowing for expansions and improvements beyond anyone's expectations. The media coverage of Max's heroism had resonated deeply with the public. Donations had poured in from across the country, many specifically designated for a new program Olivia had created, the Max Fund, dedicated to providing specialized medical care for retired service animals. "The first group graduates today," Mitchell reminded her, nodding toward the training field where 5 handlers worked with their German Shepherd partners. The Max Memorial K9 Medical Detection Program had been Mitchell's idea, training dogs to detect medical emergencies the way Max had sensed his distress that night. The pilot program focused on dogs nearing retirement from police work, giving them a second career while leveraging their years of training and experience. "He would have approved," Olivia said, watching the handlers put their dogs through the final certification exercises. Each K9 had been trained to alert to specific medical conditions, diabetic emergencies, seizures, severe allergic reactions, extending their service lives while potentially saving countless more lives. Mitchell nodded, his expression softening. "He's still saving people." The graduation ceremony was small but significant. State officials, law enforcement representatives, and families who would receive the newly trained medical alert dogs gathered in the sanctuary's community center. A bronze plaque bearing Max's image and service record had been installed at the entrance, his watchful gaze greeting every visitor. Henderson, recently promoted to captain following the successful prosecution of the trafficking ring, delivered the keynote address. "Service comes in many forms," he told the assembled crowd. "For animals like Max, it wasn't just a job, it was their very essence. The bond between a handler and their canine partner transcends ordinary understanding. It's built on absolute trust, unwavering loyalty, and a shared purpose." Olivia watched Mitchell during the speech, noting how he absently touched the small urn he carried in his jacket pocket. After Max's cremation, he had divided the ashes, a portion buried beneath the memorial plaque, a portion kept with him always, and a portion scattered in the mountains where Max had once found Olivia after her hiking accident, completing a circle none of them had recognized at the time. "Today, we extend Max's legacy," Henderson continued. "These 5 dogs will go on to save more lives, to serve in new ways, and the people they help will carry forward the story of an aging K9 who, even in retirement, remembered his most fundamental duty to protect and serve." After the ceremony, as the newly certified teams departed with their families, Mitchell lingered by the memorial plaque. Olivia joined him, respecting his silence as he traced the engraved words with his fingertips. "Detective Max K9 Officer, Denver Police Department, 2009 to 2021, 47, felony arrests, 23 missing persons found, 12 drug operations dismantled. Greater love hath no one than this." "The investigation concludes next week," Mitchell said finally. "Richard Whitman's sentencing is Thursday." Olivia nodded. The case had expanded far beyond anyone's initial expectations, revealing connections to wildlife trafficking operations across 3 continents. 17 people had been arrested, including local officials, international smugglers, and even a state representative who had helped shield the operation from scrutiny. Carol's testimony was the final nail. Mitchell continued. "Confirmed Richard was the mastermind. Not just a middleman. He's looking at 20 years minimum. How is she doing? Better than expected. The prosecutor says her testimony was compelling, dignified, but devastated. The jury couldn't look away." He sighed heavily. "She's moving to Oregon after the trial. Fresh start with her sister." They walked slowly toward the sanctuary's newest addition, a specially designed rehabilitation center for aging service animals. The modern facility included hydrotherapy pools, specialized exercise equipment, and advanced diagnostic tools, all funded by donations made in Max's name. The Richard Whitman I thought I knew would have been proud of this place. Olivia reflected sadly. The sanctuary was his idea originally. Somewhere in there was a man who understood the value of these animals' service. People are complicated, Mitchell replied. The same man who trafficked endangered animals also created this sanctuary. The same woman who fought for better animal care was married to him for 23 years without suspecting anything. We all contain contradictions. A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched a retired bomb detection Labrador enjoying a gentle swim, his arthritis temporarily relieved by the water's buoyancy. The dog's handler, a former military specialist, counted repetitions from the pool's edge, his prosthetic leg propped beside him, both veterans healing together. "I've been offered a position with the FBI's Animal Trafficking Task Force," Mitchell said suddenly. "Based on my experience with the Whitman case, you're taking it, thinking about it. It would mean moving to Virginia." Olivia felt an unexpected pang at the thought of Mitchell leaving. Over these months of shared grief and purpose, their connection had deepened beyond professional collaboration. "You should take it," she said sincerely. "You'd be good at it. And Max's case showed how much that work matters." Mitchell nodded, turning to face her directly. "I was hoping you might consider coming too. The FBI's Quantico facility needs a veterinary consultant for their canine training program. Someone who understands the unique physical and psychological needs of working dogs. Someone who's seen firsthand the bond between handler and canine." Olivia blinked in surprise. "Me?" "They asked who I'd recommend. Your name was the only one I gave them." His expression softened. "I know the sanctuary needs you. But there are other veterinarians," she finished, mind racing with unexpected possibilities. "And the programs are established now, the funding secured." The sanctuary had been her sanctuary too, a place to heal after her military service, to use her skills in a peaceful setting. But Max's case had awakened something in her, a recognition that her understanding of working animals could serve a greater purpose. As they continued their circuit of the sanctuary grounds, they passed the spot where Max had once frantically scratched arrows in the dirt, desperate to communicate his urgent message. A small garden had been planted there, desert wildflowers bringing color and life to the place where his final mission began. "I'll think about it," Olivia promised. Above them, a red-tailed hawk circled in the clear blue sky, freedom and vigilance in perfect balance. Below, the sanctuary hummed with purpose. Retired heroes finding peace after lives of service. Max was gone, but his legacy continued to grow. In the lives saved through the trafficking ring's dismantling, in the new programs bearing his name, in the changed laws strengthening protections for both wildlife and service animals, in Mitchell's renewed sense of purpose, in Olivia's expanded vision for her work. One loyal dog, refusing to give up even when his body was failing, had created ripples that continued to spread outward, touching countless lives with each passing day. "He would have liked that," Mitchell said quietly, following her gaze to the garden, knowing it wasn't the end, but a beginning. Olivia nodded, feeling the truth of it settle in her heart. The very best beginning. In our twilight years, we recognize what truly matters: loyalty that transcends words, purpose that defies retirement, and courage that ignores the limitations of aging bodies. Max's story resonates because we've all felt overlooked, dismissed due to gray hair or slowing steps. We've all feared being put out to pasture, our lifetime of experience and wisdom suddenly deemed irrelevant. But like Max, we know our worth isn't measured by youthful vigor, but by the depth of our commitment. When everyone saw only an aging dog having a breakdown, Max was fighting his final, most important battle. His arthritic body, failing him with each step, still carried the heart of a warrior, just as many of us push through our own aches to